The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone.
Let's do our due diligence, take the precautions we need to take care of ourselves.
No matter what, I still love my job and I'm going to do everything in my power to save lives.
कल की बात पुरानी नए दौर में लिखेंगे मिलकर नई कहानी.
Dr. Sonia Dalal is an interventional pulmonologist, a critical care and a renowned sleep study consultant in Vadodara, Gujarat. She has been practicing at Sterling Hospital as a head in Department of Pulmonology and has years of experience in ICU critical care. Dr. Dalal is one of the most important members of COVID-19 Task Force Gujarat and has been playing an eminent role in overcoming COVID-19.
So I remember in April, I got a call from the emergency department citing that there is a patient under a physician who's come after 7 days of fever where he has taken treatment on his own by his general practitioner and now he's come with breathlessness. For all those who are going to listen to this podcast, this patient who had a fever, he's in his 40s, he was diabetic, he was obese. What do I mean obese? His body mass index was more than 30. So he was pretty heavyweight, and he had taken treatment by a general practitioner outside in spite of repeated, media coverage, repeated telling of that when you have a fever, consult a doctor immediately. It can be COVID. He wasted 7 days. So when he wasted 7 days, when he came to us in the emergency department, his oxygen saturation, that is the oxygen level that we measure, was around 75, and he said, "Madam, मुझे कुछ नहीं हो रहा है." Right? So we were wondering, at 75, any other patient would be so breathless. It's going to be so bad. So that is the concept of what we call as happy hypoxia. He was in happy hypoxia at that time, talking with everyone, but we could make it, because as a doctor, we make it that this patient is breathing at a rate which is not normal. So he was breathing at a rate of around 30. Normally our respiratory rate is between 16 to 18. So he was breathing at a double of the rate. However, he was not feeling breathless. So we immediately admitted him and transferred him to the high dependency unit. We started him on oxygen, and then we started the normal routine COVID care, that presumptive COVID care that we always start. And that was my first encounter with this patient. I was also learning, because that everyone is having a learning curve. Today also we are learning about the COVID. Though we have a lot of papers coming out of COVID, but there is no sure shot treatment for the COVID till date. I admitted him, we started him in oxygen. 2 days he was pretty okay. Third day midnight, I suddenly got a call that 50 liters of oxygen. This guy is sort of panting, and his saturations are going in 70s again. So we might have to shift him to the ICU. But then they are so over precautious that there are a lot of inflammatory cascade which is thrown out of our body, that it starts harming us itself. So that was the time I decided that the patient now probably is going into a cytokine storm. We shifted him in the ICU. We kept him on a ventilator through a mask, right? So we didn't put a tube in, which was called a non-invasive mechanical ventilation. And at that time we got all the blood reports done, and it was purely evident that this guy now is into the third stage, he's in a critical COVID condition. By the time, of course, we got his COVID was positive. So there was no index of suspicion initially by the doctor who was treating him for the first 7 days. So that was the period which was actually missed. And then when he came to us, he was already in a very bad shape, in a serious pulmonary phase. Now he is into the critical phase. What we did was we gave him the antibiotics, we treated him with steroids, and then we treated him with the drug called tocilizumab, which is probably now causing a lot of attention for every doctor. It's like what they think is it's a magic bullet. it's like a jadoo ki jappi in that the movie called Munna Bhai MBBS. That with that you treat everything. Actually, it's not the correct concept. But however, we had no other option, so we gave him tocilizumab at that time. He showed some improvement, but gradually was deteriorating. So after 24 hours, we considered giving him tocilizumab again. Then he probably had a very sort of a stormy phase. It was like a roller coaster ride for us. 2 days he was absolutely fine. One day there was a huge dip, and again he was fine. There was a dip. One fine day, we saw that his EKG was showing the pulse of less than 50. It was probably myocardial or myocardial injury, what we called as myocarditis. We called the cardiologist. He came, he gave all the drugs, his tropa, some of the markers of heart were also increasing. We treated him with everything. We treated him with corticosteroids, we treated him with heparin, we treated him with oxygenation and ventilation. And the most important thing what we did was, we did an awake proning. What do I mean by awake proning? When the patient is on a mask or a ventilator, usko ulta sula dene ka, pura, completely ulta. Right? And when we did this, and that was the time that oxygen used to increase and improve. And he was there in the ICU for 10 to 12 days. We had to correct his electrolytes, we had to correct his renal functions, his liver functions and everything. Fortunately, there was, some silver line after 1 week, that probably his oxygen requirement little went down. We had to put him off ventilator. We kept him on an oxygen. He could tolerate it. And then he started tolerating feeds, right? So most important thing is when the patient tells that, doctor, I'm hungry. That's the time probably there is, remission. The disease remission, right? So he started asking for food. He was tolerating oxygen mask. We started a rehabilitation program. We also had some psychologist who was counseling with him, and then we gave him some positive, vibrations and positive support. So at around 14 or 15 days, he started improving. But on 14th day night, again I got a call at 12 o'clock. There's a fever of 101, and then that was the time I was like, "Itna sab karne ke baad, yaar, what's going on?" So we got his blood reports done and everything, and there was some sign of infection. So we changed the antibiotics. We were very aggressive. 18th day, he started recovering. Slowly and steadily, oxygen requirement went down. We continued his rehabilitation. We shifted him to the wards. And then in the ward, he stayed for 1 week. And then we discharged him. It was like, a victory for us. It was like we have won the India-Pakistan match. And it was a huge victory for us. And he was so happy, so very happy, that till date, he's sending me all the probable COVID patients that he's coming across. He's telling there's only one doctor in the city of Vadodara. You go to her because she has given me a second life. You have to go to her. And he's so supportive. He said, anytime you need my plasma, I'm ready to get my neutralizing antibodies done. I'm ready to get all the tests done. I'm ready to give my plasma to any patients who really need it in this time of crisis. Yeah, so Ms. Goel, it's a teamwork. So, a physician, a pulmonologist, and, the intensivist. So our team is so very good. And we all were very positive that this is our challenging case. This is the first case and we have to bring him out. And this is not the age to die. He's just 45, right? No matter, he has a lot of comorbid conditions, and yes, the patient was very supportive. And he was positive. So even when he was on an NIV, mask and ventilator going on and all, he was telling, "Madam, I'm going to come out. Whatever you say, I will do it." So when I used to tell him, "Ulta so ja 15 ghante ke liye," he used to do it. So, positivity, when I am sick, if I talk to myself, self-talk, what we call, if I talk to myself and say, I'm going to make it, I'm going to come out of this, this is a challenge to me, I'm pretty sure people do come out. So honestly, if you want to use antivirals, it has to be used into mild to moderate cases. So there is the entry of the virus through the nasal phase or oral phase, and when they enter inside, they have multiplication. So what these antivirals are doing, they are probably cutting down the genomic multiplication in the earlier phase. So once there is involvement of the lung, the patient is in a cytokine storm. As I said, it is the inflammatory process of the body itself which is causing harm to the body. So it's nothing to do with antiviral at that time. So if you really want to use an antiviral, use it in the initial phases. However, having said that, I'm pretty not sure, right, whether these antivirals are really very effective. The reason being, all this have come into the treatment for the COVID on a compassionate basis, right? So everything has been fast-tracked. So we don't have a clear clinical data or a clinical trial which says that these antivirals are really going to work. So whatever data that we have from the English or from the Western world, they have been changing their primary endpoints with these antivirals. So only thing is that they decrease the viral load very fast. And then the other thing is they decrease the stay in the hospital. But what we normally want to see is whether these antivirals are really going to prevent a pulmonary phase or really going to prevent a cytokine storm phase, which is not really true. It doesn't do that. It completely depends on the innate immunity of the person, because this is the time that whatever is available, we have to use it. So whether it works in 20% of the patients, or it works in 30% of the patients, or it works in some patients. Even if it works in 2 patients, I'm preventing their critical care stage. There has been a lot of awareness through the social media and of course the Google Baba, right? There are a lot of awareness amongst the people. People have probably resorted to alternative medicine. People have also resorted to those kadas and all those stuff. People have become very aware of the thing. So and now they are going within 24 hours to their doctors. So that also might be one of the reasons. So I'm talking about both the sides. You have 2 sides of a coin. So if you look at the brighter side, there is an awareness among the people, and there are a lot of testing, and so that's the reason you are giving a diagnosis very early, and you are now also doing an asymptomatic. You're trying to do a cluster monitoring and picking up the asymptomatic cases as well. No, there is no question of herd immunity because the virus is mutating. At this, there has been a disaster in 2 countries where they waited that everyone would develop herd immunity. Number 1 is UK. We know it was completely disastrous over there. The other was Sweden. In Sweden also they waited for a herd immunity and it was a disaster and a catastrophe. There's no question of herd immunity. We have gone way beyond it, right? We would only develop some immunity if we have vaccine, right? So I don't think so. You will have to face corona. That is one thing, and have to be very agile in diagnosing early and getting yourself or any of the patients for that matter treated early. That's the only thing. Young kids are probably not getting much of a COVID, but now if you look at the US data, in US kids have now started developing a symptom which is like a Kawasaki symptom, where they have a lot of lymph nodes and a very high grade fever, probably related to COVID. Young people, if they get COVID, if they are diagnosed early, right, of course they don't have any comorbidity, right? So they probably would recover faster. That's the only. But getting a COVID infection in elderly, in young and elderly in 30s or 40s, they will not get it. It's not possible. COVID is not going to look at the age, not going to look at the sex, not going to look at the race, and not going to look at the socioeconomic status. So I work in a private sector, right? So in a private sector, we don't have to take a lot of permissions and all those things. And we are not, bound with paperworks and all. So we have to cater to our patients, right? And we have to be very agile and aggressive. So I have treated so far 185 cases of COVID, and we have seen a mortality in 3 patients. We lost 3 patients. We'll say Just remember SMS. That's the only thing. S is for social distancing, M is for masking, and another S is for sanitization. So this is the only three things that we can, stay away from crowd, stay going to, a place where there are a lot of people around, right? Even if you're in your office or going out somewhere, keep a distance of around, 1 meter, that is 6 feet or more than 6 feet. And even if don't shake hands, don't give a hug, right? If possible, if you touch someone, wash your hand immediately, either with a sanitizer or maybe a soap for 20 seconds. So these are the things which are quite, yes, eat healthy, do exercise every day, at least 5 days in a week, right? Do some breathing exercises in form of yoga, right? And that's it. Build up your immunity. Even if you get COVID, probably no one is going to be spared if they are exposed, right? But the only thing is you probably get away with a milder form of COVID. So, I'll give you one example. Taiwan, a country called Taiwan, right? Which is near to China, right? But in Taiwan, there is a culture that whenever they go out, they wear a mask. Yes. So, in spite of being near China, they could contain their cases so fast and they could, come to a plateau and slow down only because of certain nominal measures which they did. Because there is a culture that they wear a mask always, they're covered up, and that was the reason they didn't have much of a COVID infection. So, very important thing. Number one, don't panic, right? I think we are every day living under a threat, which is not enjoy your day every day, right? We have seen so many deaths because of road traffic accidents. We have seen so many deaths because of tuberculosis. So actually, tuberculosis is still killing more people than COVID, right? We see a lot of deaths because of malignancies, which is even worse. They suffer a lot, right? But probably that has gone so slowly that people have learned to live with it. So the whole message is, please learn to live with it. Just remember one thing, SMS, enjoy as the day goes by. This is my last day. If you live under a threat, if you're stressed under the threat, probably that's the time you are going into that whirlpool. That's what I think.
Dr. Sonia has been going in daily since past 5 months, risking her life so that her patients could have a fair chance of beating COVID-19. And with her experience and expertise, we can safely say that the virus doesn't even stand a chance. She's a real hero and we salute her for her services.